So today's build is a good kind of mid-level computer. So this isn't a real high-end gaming one, but it's also not the a low or really cheap build either. And everything, of course, is really quality parts. So we're going to start off with this CORSAIR 110Q mid-tower gaming case. Cases right now, for whatever reason, right now in September of 2020, they're a little higher than normal, and I think this probably has to do with the supply chain. So this is not the first case I ordered. This was another case I ordered an Antec. And when I unboxed to do this whole video, it was dented horribly. So I tried again. That case had to get returned. And now this is a CORSAIR case. Obviously, I would say that your Fantecs, NZXT, those are excellent cases, but CORSAIR tend to be decent, especially for kind of a lower mid-range case. So I've got that unboxed, and now let's take off the styrofoam. Here's our instruction manual. Instruction manuals are hit and miss with cases. Sometimes you need them. Sometimes it's good for placement and stuff, so you never throw them out. So undo all the styrofoam. I'm just putting it back in the box. Never smash any styrofoam or anything else till you know that your case is fine. And it's not just the external side of the case, but also all of the buttons that you have to be careful of. Okay, so looking at the case, it looks okay. Actually, as I look at this, this looks a little bit bent on one side, but I think we're going to be okay. And I'll show you what I mean by that. The buttons seem to be okay. So let's open up this case and kind of see what's inside here. So I'm going to remove these thumb screws all the way. One thing I don't like too much is, okay, so it's got felt here. This is what they call the silent case. This does seem to be just ever so slightly bent. Let's see, before we go too much further, let's make sure this isn't a problem. We've got a little bit of a stick up here. I think it'll be okay. And again, this is a little unusual. Quality control in cases right now seems to be a little rough. That's why I usually go with at least somewhat of a name brand, but this seems to be okay. Okay, so I'm going to remove the side panel, and the side panel, how I removed, was just right on the sides. You can see that it has thumb screws, okay? And thumb screws literally mean just that. So these are Phillips, but they're also meant to just undo with your hand. So I removed one flat panel, and I'm just going to kind of stick that off to the side, and I'll put the screws right there, and then I'll go ahead, and because we're building and we're going to have to get behind the case and everything, I'm going to go ahead and remove both. Now, if for some reason these thumb screws are a little tight, which you can see that this one should just release with my hand. It's not, so I'm just going to take a ratchet, screwdriver, you got to be careful. I just want to loosen it a little bit. And when you put it back, you want to make sure that you go ahead and not put it back full force and not drop your screw down inside. Okay. Yeah, I mean, so far in this case, it's okay. I'm not incredibly happy with it. The build quality seems a little under par, especially that this was, I believe, about a $70 case, which is really quite high for having any sort of a defect. At least we've got metal here on the side. You know, this is just a felt for sound, but it's okay. Okay, now since we've got the case exposed, kind of looking around, I can see we got a slight, see here. Again, this is just shoddy workmanship. It's a slight bend, but it's better than the last one that was completely dinged up. So I'll lay this down. They always give you this box back here, and I can see that the way they have it, they want us to release it from the back side. So go right here, and I'm just going to, and this is where you would normally put your hard drive or SSD. So we'll just kind of pop this out. And what's usually is going to be in here is this should be our any sort of cable ties that they give us, screws, things like this. So that should all be inside this box. And this is how I'd mount a traditional hard drive. I'd put the hard drive right in here, and then these would literally just go in the holes and hold it. I can also mount an SSD on these holes here. We're not going to use either of that because we are building with an M.2. But it's good for now. So let's see what else we've got going on. We have our cables here. So this is our front panel headers. What's kind of nice is that this one only has 2 USB 3.0 ports. So that means, and those are almost always going to be on a dual cable. So that's one single connection. So it's just a split. And then we have a power button, and then we have simple audio, and then a reset button. And what I like about that is that means far fewer front panel connectors. Okay, so that's nice. This guy is a little close to where our power supply is going to sit. So our power supply is going to sit right back here. And then this is just, again, for those extra cages, or extra hard drives, excuse me. I think I'm going to go ahead and remove this. We also got another fan. Reason is because I read that this has one back fan. And normally that's fine because what it does, we want our air to go from the front and out the back. Okay, so this will pull this way. Okay, so this is going to pull out this way, and that will naturally suck air across. I like a little bit more force air, so I would like to pull more air in this way and then have it flow back out. So I bought one extra fan that will mount up here in the front. We should actually do that fairly quick as one of the first parts so that doesn't get in the way of anything else. Okay, so it looks like this guy, this little thing here, it looks like I've got some screws right here that I can loosen. So let's go ahead and do that. And of course, one thing I need to be careful is I'm doing this upside down. And what I don't want to do is have this thing fall, although I've got no parts in here right now, but still. It does look like we've got one more screw on the side as I'm looking at it. And again, I could keep this in here, and sometimes I don't like removing parts, but I'm really not fond of this being so close to my power supply. I think it's just going to be messy. And we're not going to use it anyways, so I'll remove this. Okay. And hopefully, I will say though, the one thing that always makes me nervous and stuff like this is if this has any sort of structural integrity, meaning that some of this metal they make cases with are so cheap that sometimes what you might find is some of these, you know, are held into place and it's really, see like this is very weak metal. Luckily, this computer's not going to be moving too much, but I'm going to say right now, it's my first time building with this CORSAIR 110Q, and it is not my fave. It's a little light, and this did, in fact, just even having that one thing there gave it a little bit more stability. But I think it's strong enough that we should be okay, but I don't like that bow for sure. Is what it is. But at least now I've got this whole piece down here that when I put my power supply in, you'll see in a sec that that's going to help. Okay, so I've got a bunch of screws, and this, what I don't want to do is lose this. So usually what I do is I take these screws and I tape them right on here, because that way I know that these screws belong to that. And then if this is for a customer or something, I just go ahead and give them those screws. So I'm going to take some tape, and this is, it's not the cleanest way, but I'm just literally going to put the screws inside the tape, fold the tape over, kind of make sure both sides are sealed up. There's that. And I'm just going to stick the screws right on top of here. And then that way, if I hand this to a customer, I can say, look, this is a drive bay. If you're ever going to upgrade in the future, here you go. So let's just set this off for now, because I don't think we're going to be utilizing it anytime soon. Let's check out what we've got inside of our, what did CORSAIR give us inside of our box? Okay, and it looks like we've got, not bad, I've seen worse. So it looks like we've got some loose zip ties. Zip ties are great for cable management, so we will utilize those. Okay, these guys I can tell right now on the bottom, that's going to be great. We're probably going to use that right away, because these really rough looking screws, they're real thick. That's going to be for fans. So we're actually going to connect a fan, although our fan might come with it too. And then we've got two more sets. So we've got kind of bigger ones and smaller ones. Now, offhand, these smaller ones should be here, and I'll hold this up later, but these smaller, thinner threaded ones should be for hard drives, SSDs, DVDs, things like this, where these a little, it's still pretty fine thread, but a little bit bigger. These should be for the motherboard itself. So we'll see. But always check before you do that. Looks like we got an extra standoff. That's for our actual motherboard here. Nice. And washers, which honestly is a little strange, because normally these built-in motherboard ones have little built-in washers on them. So a little strange for CORSAIR. And again, when all else fails, we have our little manual, although usually the manuals aren't great. So it just tells us our screw types, SSD times 12. And it does show those as being the flat ones. Yep, perfect. So those real small, thin ones I described, that is in fact SSD, so that's normal. Motherboard, hard drive, that shows that's the rounded ones. Perfect. That's these. Although, that's fine. Washers, it just says washers. Nice. And fan screws. Okay, so I'll actually give them credit that it does seem to show what everything is. This shows the take-apart thing. Removing the side panels, installing the motherboard. This shows how that can slide out. That shows installing PCI. Tell you what I don't like. Okay, moving HDD cage. Okay, so I went ahead and took it out, but it does say that we're allowed to do that, so yay, that's good. And now we are in French. Okay, I should know how to say that. So one of the things that I'm going to try to do as much as possible as I'm going is not to make an absolute mess. So I'm going to kind of over here just put my screws that I have that just came in one corner. I'm going to take all of my ties, because I will be utilizing these later. I'm going to take all my zip ties over here. Instruction manuals for now, I'm going to set right up here. And then this extra box I am not using, so I'm going to toss this into the motherboard box and hope that I'm not going to destroy anything until I have this thing running. Okay, but I'm just going to set it over there for now. Okay, so first thing first, let's normally install the power supply, but I think I'm going to first see about the case fan. And again, normally you don't have to install another case fan, but I got an Antec case fan. These are usually pretty decent. Basically what you're looking for in any case fan, you can get really cheap ones, and that's fine. It's just that they'll often die out. So I'm looking that they have like good ball bearings and stuff. This seemed to have decent reviews. It's not the nicest, but it's not the worst. Okay. And look, this actually comes with its own screws. That's fine. The reason why it has those screws is because it literally makes its own thread, okay? Now, the important thing on this, what I need to do is on every fan, or should be, we should see an arrow, and I'm looking for it, and really got to be kidding me. There should be an arrow with a direction, okay? And that direction tells you which way the flow is. So let's see if Antec put it somewhere strange. I hope they actually put it, because that is very poor design to not have a direction for the flow. And I do not see. I'm really surprised. Antec's a pretty big name. Well, that might be it too. Okay, I'm gonna get my glasses. Okay. Back with my glasses just to see if we see any sort of marking. Thought I saw something on the side. Okay, and that's really too bad. So we're going to put this on. Most of the time, we're going to find that what I'm about to tell you is correct, but we might have to move this around. So the motor is right here, okay? And I know that the motor's there because this is the fan, everything else, and this is where the wires are going to. So usually this is where the air is going to go out. And you can kind of tell because if I look over on this one, this I know is blowing this direction, okay? So this should be intaking the air. The air will be going in this direction and out that direction. And again, I don't know when they stopped doing the arrows. It's really too bad. But we're going to assume that's going to go like this. So I'm basically going to be mounting it here. There's a couple different areas that I can mount. I want to be careful of where this is going, because basically this cable here has got to reach my motherboard, which in this case I think we're going to be fine. But I'm going to mount it. Now, frankly, the motherboard's going to be here, and I've got the graphics card and stuff like that going in, and that's going to have a little bit of an exhaust downward. I want air going up and through this. Sometimes we have top vents too up in the top, but I want my airflow kind of like this. So I think I'm going to mount it down here. This might get in the way, but again, I'd rather mount it now than later. So the problem is what I've got to do is I got to put these screws in here, and it's got to go here. So I've got to remove this piece. So let's see how difficult Antec has made this. Okay, I see it. Looks like we've got little, and this is pretty common, little pinchers. So I should be able to pinch. Come on. And I can already feel it loosen. Good and bad that comes off so easy. That's a mixed bag. Okay. Well, while I have this off, I know that I'm going to put in a DVD drive in this. I'll be honest, part of the reason this case was not, I think why it's overpriced right now and why it's hard to find a good case is because of this. You can get better cases right now that don't have any 5 1/4 inch slots. This, unfortunately, to get one that still has a spot for your DVD is becoming harder and harder. But I'm going to go ahead and remove this and get this ready because I'm going to put one in. And it looks like it just got little clips here. So there's clips here, Clips here. So I'm just going to kind of hold it and squeeze gently because we don't want to break plastic. I don't trust this case that much. And remember, even though I keep talking about how I don't trust the case, once it's together, it will become a lot more sturdy. So it's when cases aren't put together. Okay, there we go. So now I just push from internally, I push those, and now I have this out, okay? Don't ever throw these out either, because oftentimes someone might say, hey, I don't want a DVD drive anymore or whatever. Put this in the motherboard case and keep it. Okay, so I might as well have removed that anyways because I needed this open. So we got that open, and let's get our screws. Okay, and let's see here. So again, this is going to be my outtake, so I want to pull air from here. I've got a couple different spots. Worries me a little bit that the graphic card, I'm going to guesstimate it's going to be right around here, so I don't know if I want this too close to the graphics card. So maybe we'll just move it up slightly. And that'll still give a little bit of an air intake. I mean, the other thing I can do is go down here, and that wouldn't be horrible. But if that graphics card's sticking up here, it's going to block some of that airflow. And I can say, you know, in some way, though, we also want to exhaust our hot air down here because we're going to have our power supply. That fan will be pulling up from the bottom. The power supply will be pulling up from the bottom and then going out. So that releases its own air. But I'll trap a little bit of air right here. But if I'm just blowing here, and that's blowing down from the graphic card, that's a little bit problematic too. So I'm probably just going to go up a little bit. And honestly, this is a little bit of trial and error of kind of figuring out where your exhaust is. And there's things you can do. You can actually test it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this a little bit on a slide. You can test these and see how the air goes through. I mean, and there's all sorts of testing in this, but for a simple computer, we don't have to worry too much. I just want to make sure that this person has decent airflow. Okay, so starting to, basically I'm making my own thread here, so you got to be a little bit careful. So I'm just kind of want to hand start it. And then I'm going like this now. And of course I already see a problem. This is what happens when I'm doing this from the side. You can see right here, as I started this is not going to fit here. So that's fine. Let's remove that. You know, we don't want to redo that a bazillion times, but one time's not going to hurt anything. There we go. So it's got to be on the two inner ones. And all that means is this is because it's a 120 millimeter fan. And if I had a larger fan, that would go on the outside. Okay. Now, I'm not going to go ahead and tighten this all the way yet because I want to get both sides in first. Okay. And there we go. Let's get this guy in. Okay. And notice right now I still have my jewelry on. I still have my I don't have my anti-static wrist strap on. I don't need any of that right now because I'm not dealing with any electrical parts. The fan doesn't count. This thing is pretty durable. Okay, so that doesn't look bad. This might be a little bit away in the graphic card, but luckily, even though I haven't tightened it, and by the way, a lot of times too, what you'll find on nice fans is they'll have little rubber grommets, and that'll help the noise. Okay, because when these spin, sometimes they do get a little bit of noise going. But I can always loosen these a little bit and slide this up and down. I won't be able, well, I won't be able to slide it any further down, but I really don't think I want it further down anyways. I might want it further up, but I think for now, this seems pretty good. So, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. And one thing I do like about these kind of guards is I can kind of make sure that it's somewhat straight, because if I just go all the way down here and the other one's all the way down, well, then it's going to be as level at least as the manufacturing of the case. So let's loosen this guy a little bit. There we go. Okay, so I just pushed it all the way down. I'm just utilizing these bars to kind of keep it in a somewhat interesting, position. And again, I'm just going to do, and pretty much anytime you're screwing something like this, just do kind of like how you do a car tire. I'm just going to go from side to side to side. And the reason is because that way it makes it more uniform on the pressure tightening. Okay, looks good. Okay, so the next step, this is normally not a step you have to do. I just wanted to install another fan on this particular build because I read some mixed reviews about that this kind of trapped a little bit of heat, and that made me nervous. So, okay, the next thing, before we get into anything else, is let's get a power supply going. So, for a power supply, I've got a Thermaltake. Thermaltakes are great power supplies. I will say by far my favorite is Seasonic. I think Seasonic makes excellent power supplies. That being said, as of right now, Seasonic, there's some sort of supply shortage or something. They're exorbitantly expensive. I normally don't have such a problem finding Seasonic. And a lot of people go, I've never heard of Seasonic. Okay, well, you might not have heard of Seasonic, but they literally make a lot of the power supplies for other companies. So sometimes you might as well go the best. They also offer usually a 10-year warranty. This one, though, I got to say, this Toughpower, they're doing the 10-year warranty. It's got the 100% Japanese capacitors. That is nice. And all that means is sometimes, you'll see that a lot, Japanese capacitors. All that means is that a lot of times the capacitors, which is important for regulating voltage, they're a little bit higher quality and filled often. So they tend not to, capacitors are those things that stick up on a motherboard and you'll see them swell. Well, as soon as they swell, they're ruined, okay? So this is nice. It's modular cables. This is actually my first Thermaltake power supply in many, many years. So I'm actually curious about this. Seasonic, I would say, is the best. CORSAIR makes very good ones, although you got to learn their lettering system. I think it's a little confusing, but there's different ratings, TX being one of the best, going down. Antec is still, they've been around for a long time. They're still very well known. EVGA, very good. But let's see our Thermaltake. This is a 650 watt. This is quite a bit more than this person needs. I like to do a little bit, especially because this person wanted a graphics card because you're going to do some graphics. I wanted to overbuild slightly. And reason being is they might want to upgrade their graphics card. Already we're finding some of the 3000 series and stuff like this is really quite power hungry. So we got little instructions. Okay, nice. Okay, I gotta say, so far, fairly impressed. It's got a little cover, and again, you can't always go by aesthetics, but sometimes it says something. Okay, so we got a 650 watt. This is fully modular. Smart fan. Yeah, this is the hot thing that a lot of people are putting on these. I've got mixed reactions. So the Smart Fan Zero, it's got an on-off switch. What that means is that at real low, if it's not drawing a lot of juice, it won't run the actual fan, this fan here. So the idea is to save power and noise. I don't know. I think I'm older. I kind of like my fans to run all the time. This looks like a, yep, okay. So this, we're just supposed to see that that is on. Okay, so we actually have to take that sticker off. Now we can actually see everything. this is where a modular is. You can get a non-modular, and that just means all these cables are already connected. I really like modulars. Usually it's not too much more money, and this way it's going to be so much more clean. Okay, so we're going to set that off to the side. And then let's open up inside here. Nice. And this is our bag full of all of our connectors. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and keep, this is always one of those things, I hand them the box because, well, technically with this stuff, you can tear off the UPC code and stuff on the bottom, and usually you're fine with your warranties. But something like a 10-year warranty, I like to, keep the box around for a little bit. The instructions, honestly, I'm going to go ahead and just put the instructions here. Power supply should not need instructions. We'll see. Okay. Now, one thing I'm a little surprised by, in fact, I'm a lot surprised by, is, never mind. Okay, here they are. They should come with screws. That's important. Okay, so let's go through and let's find out what we got here. So, let's take a pair of scissors. Make sure you don't cut any wires. Oops. Or hit the case with a screwdriver. Okay, what do we need? We're going to need our motherboard. So that looks like our motherboard one because you always have to have that. We're going to need, this is SATA. We will need a SATA because and again, it's too bad because we got M.2 and everything, but we've got a DVD drive, so we got to at least have one SATA. PCI, okay, this is CPU. Okay, so this is our 8-pin CPU. We'll definitely need that. This is another SATA. We only need one SATA. Another SATA. We're good. This is a Molex to a 4-pin. So this is for fans. So this would be an extra connector, basically, if I've got to power a fan directly from the power. That's a 4 or 3-pin fan. And you might be like, hey, you just put a fan in. Right, but I'm going to connect the fans to the motherboard because usually there's fan headers, and I'd rather that than use this. But main reason why I'd rather connect the fans to the motherboard than to this is because if a fan goes out, I wouldn't necessarily know unless I looked, okay? Whereas if it's connected to the motherboard, you can monitor that and you can see if there's a fan gone. What's this guy? Okay, this is our PCI E, so PCI Express connector. 6-pin plus a 2, so that would be a 6 or 8-pin connector, and that would be for the graphics card. I know I need this because we got a graphics card. Some graphics card actually require 2. I do not know if this one does yet or not. I don't think so. I don't think it's that power hungry, so I'm going to go ahead and take the other one of those and put this away. So I'm going to put my plastic, and again, I'm just trying to keep this somewhat organized. We had a bag with this. I need to keep this because final assembly, I'll need that. But I'm going to put these back in the cute little Thermaltake bag. You know, that's kind of the new thing now, but it's a nice addition. Okay, what I do need here, and notice what they gave me here. Obviously, it's my actual power connector, which is great. And then I got some new zip ties, yay. And the zip ties, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'm going to actually put the zip ties together up over here with my pile of zip ties. And I do need this because this is the screws to put the power supply in. And then this, of course, is to plug it in. I'm just going to set this off to the side for now because I don't need it, until I plug it in. This particular bag I really don't need anymore because even once this is done, I'm going to put this in the motherboard box and then hand it directly to the customer and say, here you go. Okay, so let's go ahead and take this. I'm going to take these cables because I'm not going to use these right now. So I'm going to set these off to my side. Let's open up the little bag. And of course, There we go. Okay, boom. And we'll put that right here. Okay, fan. You can mount this a couple different ways. Remember, this is an intake, so air is going to go into here, and then it's going to go out here. So for an intake, you can mount it where it takes in from the case, but normally you don't. Normally we're going to mount, you know, what we say upside down. And notice it's already kind of designed, and that's actually cute. So this way I look at it, and the power is right side up. But when I turn it upside down, they put the sticker on the other side to still make it right side up. I've never seen that. That's interesting. Okay, so I've now got to set this in here. And I will say that this is a little goofy. The way they've designed this, when I lay it down, this doesn't go down all the way. So that's, it literally lays all the way on the floor. That's interesting. That's not totally normal. So I'm going to have to go from, I'm going to have to just center it myself. That's really unusual. Okay, so I center it myself, and what I'm doing, and I'm just doing this, I can't keep it like this, but I've got to line it up. There we go. And that's lined up. Actually, I could hold it. Okay, and let me show you here. So it's lined up. So this screw hole will go into here. Then there's this part, and then this part goes in. And then, believe it or not, this is kind of a weird design, but then this hole, actually, I'm not going to put a screw in this hole because the hole's down here. And that's somewhat common. Okay, so let's do this. So I'm going to do this vertically because there's no reason to try to do this otherwise. I'm going to use my ratchet screwdriver. I don't want to use my ratchet screwdriver for much stuff inside, but for something like this. But always kind of hand start this first because you don't want this to go. And I'm going to do the same thing that I've done on all the others. And what I mean by that is I'm going to go side to side. I'm going to go top left and then top right. And I'm not tightening it 100%. Now I'm going bottom left. Okay. Bottom left. And be careful that you don't strip it. So even though I know you hear the ratchet going, I'm kind of hand doing it first, just starting it. And then I'm going. Okay. So I've got pretty much all that done here. So again, to tighten it, I'm just going to go a little bit more here. So let's go top right, bottom right. Oh, that's top left, sorry. Top right, bottom left. Okay, that is mounted. Sometimes you'll see slide outs, and that's a common one I'm seeing now too, but that's fairly common how this goes. I just don't like that it's got this extra space here. That's a little unusual because then for lining up purposes, that was a little odd, okay? It does have a little dust filter here, and the idea of this is, again, remember, that's my air intake, so you can clean this. Be really careful with these when you grab the computer case from the bottom because these can slip on you, and then you're going to drop your computer. So very easy. Well, knock on wood. Haven't done it, but I've been close a couple times. I haven't, been careful. Okay, so we've got our power supply mounted, so we're good that way. We are ready. I'm going to wait to mount the DVD drive for a sec, and that is an unusual. Okay, that's going to be fun to get a screw in to this DVD drive. That's not my favorite mounting way for a DVD drive. Okay. Well, the fact is they have one, so it's a little surprising. I might actually have to disconnect this. Sorry, I'm looking around. Always kind of plan ahead what you've got to do. And again, this is a brand new case, and every case is slightly different. I don't like that. Okay, well, we'll cross that bridge here in a little bit. So the next thing it looks like is we're going to have to get our motherboard in. So I'm going to go ahead and untwist our front panel connectors. And I'm going to have to get ready to start dealing with some electronics here soon, which means jewelry off and static protection on. Okay, so here's the front panels. Let's kind of just tuck these out of the way. And all this stuff will still get in your way eventually, but you just kind of move it for now. That I'll have to tuck a little bit better once we get close. But it does look like in here I've got this A, M, and I. So A is for ATX. So it looks like my standoffs, which that's nice. All of these things next to it say A. So it looks like it's ready for a full-size ATX. And if it was M, it would be a micro, so I would remove, although this still shows a micro, which, okay. But it looks like it's ready for a full size. So let's go ahead and take this, and we're going to move our case out of the way right now. I'll come back to it. Okay, and I don't need this. We don't need RAM yet. But we do need, well, actually, we do need all this. So let's bring all the big stuff over. Graphics card will install once it's in the actual computer. Okay. So we got RAM, we got CPU, we got motherboard. Hold on. Okay. So I'm about ready to start dealing with some of this stuff. So it's now time. Watch off. I don't want any possibility of getting any electrical current. Wedding ring off. And that's really just for static electricity. You don't have to, but it's just a good idea to. Okay, so let's see what we've got for our motherboard. And this is ASUS, one of my favorite brands, probably my favorite. I would go ASUS, and then I would go MSI is excellent too, and Gigabyte. That's probably the three, to me, top manufacturers. There's also ASRock. They branched off from ASUS quite a few years ago. I've had limited experience with them. I'll be honest, I ordered one. My first one that I had ordered was dead. Second one worked fine. They're very modern, and they push the envelope, and I think they have to because they're kind of the underdog. As far as quality, though, I usually trust ASUS. And then Gigabyte and MSI are great, too. The Tough, this is just supposedly be a little bit heavy-dutier. We'll see. X570, this is the newest chipset for the 3000 series of AMD. I've used this exact one, and actually did have 25 builds over there with this. Couple issues originally with the BIOS on this. Hopefully this has been updated. If not, I'm going to be updating BIOS. But after the BIOS updates, this has been a pretty solid board. So we're opening up. Okay, we're getting there. So now I'm going to go ahead and put on my anti-static. Really, in your anti-static, it's all about this metal piece here. Okay, and what I'm looking for is basically I put this on. Okay, and you could put it either direction. I have kind of hairy arms, so I'm just getting it where there's a little bit less hair. Put it on your non-dominant hand, okay, because you don't want it crossing in front of you. Normally, this goes to your case, okay? I'm not going to put it on my case right now because I'm going to build out of the box. This is an anti-static mat, so this is also on here. A lot of people think the whole idea of this is to ground. Look, normally you should be building on cement, flooring, wood is fine. One of the worst things of where I'm at here is this is carpet. And that is horrible for static. I'm also in the desert, and the desert generates, it's very low humidity, so we generate a lot of static electricity. So I have a carpet, a special carpet that I have to try to reduce anti-static, and this mat is an anti-static mat, and I'm wearing this, okay? I'm not worried about grounding myself with this. What I need to do, because if I ground myself, I'm gonna need some Gatorade and stuff, because you're not gonna lose all of the electrical charge that you have. Instead, what I'm trying to do is become one. But I'm trying to actually equalize the static electricity between my components and myself, okay? Because it's when there's an uneven charge, that's when it's gonna hop. That's when the static electricity is gonna move from one side to the other. Okay, so let's see what we got here. So this right here looks like that this is our Wi-Fi. Okay, so this is the actual Wi-Fi adapter. It's kind of funny looking, but we wanted to make sure we definitely keep that. Okay, lifting out the actual motherboard itself, and then let's see what else is in here. We got other good stuff that we need in here. So, and these have always been so incredibly important. So many other instruction manuals you cannot get rid of. Always keep your motherboard instruction manual. Hopefully this is a real one. Unfortunately, there's been a move to like, here's a QR code, go look up more online. I think that's a horrible solution, especially because I don't want to be holding my phone while I'm looking up stuff about a computer. I like seeing all this because this is going to tell me my channels, where I first install my RAM, and everyone's slightly different. So this is very, very important. It always gives us a couple SATA cables. Nice, because we'll use that. This is our rear I/O shield, so we're definitely going to need that. We're going to have to pop this guy before we put in the motherboard. I got to put this into the case because that's what's going to line up. And certificate of reliability, that's fine. These little screws, a lot of people go, what's this for? We're going to use this. This is for our SSD, as it were, which technically isn't even SSD, but our hard drive, very loosely termed, but our M.2. So we need that. That's very important. And then, of course, our motherboard driver disk. Sometimes you need this just to boot it. I like to get them fresh because this is already going to be old. Because whenever they manufacture this, they usually come out with more. So this is one of those questionable ones. Hopefully I don't have to use it. Sometimes I do. So we'll keep it out for now, but hopefully I can kind of put it away. Now, I'm going to put this whole piece back, but once I'm done and this is running, I'll remove this and then I'll kind of pack. This is the box, the one box that usually I tell everyone and like my clients, keep your motherboard box until you get rid of a computer. Because you keep all your manuals in here, you keep everything in here, and this is really easy to stick away in the garage, something else, and you always have it. Okay, so let's move some of this, and again, you notice this is why it's nice to have a nice big table. This is an anti-static bag. One of the interesting pieces about an anti-static bag is, one, keep them, but two, the anti-static nature of this to help keep static electricity down, and I'm kind of just grabbing some metal because I'm about to touch a motherboard, is the outside is not anti-static, the inside is. So you'll see sometimes people take their motherboard out like this, and then they stick it on top of the anti-static bag. Don't do that, okay? Okay, here we go. So this is our motherboard, and this is our chipset. That's this new one. This is the 500 series because this is also the PCI 4.0, which really there's not much stuff out there for, but it has a fan. I'm lukewarm on this. I like heat sinks. Reason being is because what scares me about the fan is these can die, and this is a chipset, but it is what it is. Our CPU is going to go here. Here's our RAM, and here's a cover, which this is actually quite nice for M.2, which we're going to use. This is for a PCI Express times 16. We're going to put our graphics card in here once it's mounted, PCI Express times 1 times 16 times 1. Okay, so this is quite nice. This will definitely fill that little case up. And then this has this little shield up here. That's kind of new, but they're fine. Okay, so next I want to go ahead and let's get our CPU going. So I'm going to take this. Be careful on this. Usually, actually, if you've got a little razor, that's fine. In fact, I do. I'll tell you why. You've got a lot of your warranty information, everything on that sticker. So sometimes it's nice to just don't rip open your CPU package, I guess is the moral of the story that I'm saying. Okay, so now I just walked in carpet and I came back, so I'm going to go ahead and kind of just stop shuffling my feet, kind of touch this around me a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to take this little razor there, and that makes it a real easy, nice cut. Just because, again, I don't want to ruin this box at all. So this is an AMD 3600X. That is the 3rd series as of now. This is the newest. It's a Ryzen 5, which is a 6-core, 12-thread. I think this is a pretty decent, kind of a good mid-range. There is the Ryzen 3, which is more like the Core i3, but I'm a Ryzen fan. I think for cost right now, I think they're really doing a good job. And I'll have other videos showing an Intel build. But let's pull this out. Here we go. This is my actual CPU, and it's under protective thing. And then again, right here is my sticker. I always like to keep my stickers around. Okay. Now, we've got this and the fan. Okay, so I'm going to put all this plastic back in the box for now. I'm not going to do anything with this box until I'm all done, because I need, if I got warranty issues or anything, I need that. Okay, now, this is kind of important for fans. AMD fans, unlike Intel, AMD fans have really come a long way. These are quite nice. Unless you're doing extreme overclocking or really pushing this thing, most of the time the stock fans I have found are actually really decent. Now, I just did it. Always when you take your fan, always put it upside down. Because one thing I've noticed is this bottom piece sticks in the box. Okay, the reason is you don't want to just pick it up is this is my thermal paste. It comes pre-applied. I do not want to touch this. If I touch it, I ruin it. Okay, because I'm going to get finger grease and stuff on there. So basically, if I touch it, I've got to clean all of it off with isopropyl alcohol and then reapply it. And some people say, frankly, it's good to do. Put your own Arctic Silver. I've got some. Look, usually the pre-applied thermal paste is fine. Okay, especially, again, if you're not doing much with it. So don't touch this. In fact, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put, there we go. And it's got a special little thing, so I'm going to go like this and flip it upside down, okay? So this way, it's off, and trust me, I've watched many students, and I've been close, to they set this down, boop, and it's got the thermal paste, and again, you just ruined it. Okay, so here we go. Installation, first thing first. Couple things. One, I got to lift this bar. But two, there's going to be a triangle on this, okay? And you've got to look super close. Let's see if this zoom is going to work. But basically, I see a tiny little triangle there, okay? And you can kind of see that it's highlighted under there. So there's a little tiny triangle. It's not anywhere else. It's just right there. That becomes very important when I install the CPU. Oh, actually, we've got another thing. Before I install the CPU, this is a good catch. Welcome to the new AMD thing, and this gets a little confusing. So this has these screw holes, okay? So when I mount this, I'm going to actually mount it here. This is for, what's on here already is for an old, it's actually not even old style. The 3900s have it, so certain AMDs have it, certain don't, but it's a clip style, where I put one clip on this and then I pressure clip it on this. This is a screw one, so I'm actually glad I caught this. Before I start, I don't really want to handle the CPU or get my fingers around it more than I need to. So I know I've got to remove these two things because this fan, this heat-sinking fan, have to screw into the bottom. So I'm going to take And again, normally we don't use a ratchet, but I'm just going to, these sometimes, because they're factory, you got to at least snap them a little bit. Okay, and I say snap them, that's not the right term. Just kind of break the initial, okay. I don't want that around anymore because I've got delicate parts around here. I don't need a giant ratchet screwdriver around, so I'm just going to go ahead and take my iFixit kit out. And let's, okay, there's one. Now, here's the weird part too. Remember how I did that tape? Yeah, I'm going to do it again here because these, I'm not going to use this again. But I don't want to throw this out because how about if a person upgrades a processor and it needs, it has the clip style. So I like, I'll be honest, I like the screw style of the new fans because I think it's very secure. But this part's a little bit of a pain. And I'll tell you the other part you got to be careful of is once I'm doing this, okay, and I've got these screws out, and I'll clean this up here in a sec. These holes now are on a back plate, and it's doing it. You can see it right there. So when I lift up, you can see the back plate is here, okay? Now, I can technically pull this off, and I can try to stick it on or anything, but you really don't need to do any of that. Just keep it on the back plate like this, and as long as it's down, it's fine, because when I tighten this, it's going to pull it straight up, okay? Easy peasy. So, first step first, CPUs are very sensitive to static. I'm going to pull this back, okay? Here we go. I'm going to open this clam case. Be careful. I have watched people open these clam case, and this fly out. Okay. Don't pick up, try not to touch the top at all, so I'm going to try to just touch the sides. Okay, so here's the sides. And basically, if I need to move it around, I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to grab the sides like this. Now, one of the things I need to do is this is a PGA, which means pin grid array. So I'm going to hold this, and I'm going to look down the rows. And I'm looking for, and basically what I'm doing, let's see if I can show this in here, is I'm looking down the rows for any bent pins. Because if you got one bent pin, you're going to be in trouble. Okay, and nice, it looks good. Okay, now the other thing I need to do is, remember that triangle? We need to find the triangle here. And I can see the triangle right there. So what that means is triangle to triangle. Triangle was over here. And luckily, most of the time, it's printed in the right direction, but always look for the triangle. It's been there for years. So this is a pin grid array. This is zero force insertion. That is very, very important. What this means is I'm not going to push down at all. My pins are here. So instead, I'm just going to set this down. Now, I just kind of set it down, almost dropping it, okay? I didn't drop it, but I just set it down. I didn't push at all. But I always do something called a wiggle test, and I think this is important because sometimes you go, I got it. Yeah, before you put down the bar, go side to side, go up and down, okay? And it passed the wiggle. And why I say the wiggle test is sometimes just moving it slightly, and it's slight. All of a sudden it goes boop, and it falls in. You go, oh, okay, I wasn't quite in. Drop your bar down. Okay, bar's down. Now we need to install this guy. So a couple factors. Okay, I've got it up, so no turning back now. Actually, there is. I can still set it down. But one of the things I want to look at is, one, I've got my CPU fan. So where does the fan plug in for the CPU? And I can see it up here. There's little tiny writing that says CPU fan, CPU OPT. So CPU fan, CPU OPT, that's your RGB header. So I want to plug it into the first one. So why I'm saying that is ideally, you don't want to twist this around too many times. The other thing is this is a rectangle, not a square. And I mean by, if you're like, it's a circle. No, I mean this part, okay, it's longer here than it is across. So when you look at this, I can't ever go like this, okay? So I'm basically looking at, do I go this way or this way? I could go this way, and honestly, it doesn't really matter. And sometimes there's a reason why you might go this way, okay, especially with AMD builds, because of this, if I need that RAM slot, okay? This has this little top piece and the little AMD piece, and that can kind of sometimes block a little bit of the RAM. I think I'm not going to need this. I hope. We'll find out pretty quick. And if I do, then I'm going to have to remove this whole thing. But I think it'll be okay, and I like it aesthetically because, I don't know, the AMD looks awkward the other way, although technically the AMD the other way would match this. But if I go this way with it, I mean, it would still work. And as I'm talking about it, I don't know. I don't know if I like the way that that's... A lot of this is aesthetics. It really is. Because if I go here, that's real easy, and that's not bending this at all strange. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and go this direction with it. And again, a little bit aesthetic. So what I'm going to do is I got to set these down. I don't want to lift this back up and back up. So I'm kind of just looking, and I'm going to set these right on the holes. Okay. And it looks like they're all kind of set on the holes. I'm going to go ahead and trade out my tip for a little bigger of a tip. And this guy, I'm going to start a couple rounds, and then I'm going to go over to the other side. A couple rounds. And again, I don't want to keep going on one side because I need to make sure that I give kind of even pressure all the way around. So I'm just like a car tire, I'm just going to okay, so I think I've got them all started. Nice. So now I'm just going to start zip, couple more, couple more, couple more. Okay, and I'm just kind of going. Okay, now, this is what I like. Actually, they do a pretty good job. I know I'm done because, especially on these AMD fans, it just stops. Okay, I mean, could I keep tightening? Sure, I guess you could be He-Man and see how much you can tighten, but at some point, don't be silly, it stops naturally. Stop. So, stop. And not all fans do this. Okay, some fans you just have to kind of feel. But this one stopped very nicely. Now, from now on, when I need to pick up the motherboard, I'm actually going to pick it up by the heatsink and fan. And it shouldn't hurt anything. That thing better be on secure enough that it doesn't have any issues. Okay. We need to get RAM in. We can do RAM before. We can do RAM once it's inside. Doesn't really matter. But I think I want to go ahead and get our M.2 in. Okay. So, and the reason is because that I'm not going to want to do inside the case for sure. So let's open this guy up. I want to put my plastic in here. And again, I'm just trying a little bit to keep my work area organized. Okay, so let's open this guy, and this is a very, and not all. Most of the time, M.2, you're just going to have a spot that it goes into. In fact, I see one right up here. And this says socket 3. M.2.1. And actually, you know what? Just for fun, let me look up M.2. And the reason is because I know this is M.2 under here, but this is also an M.2. Sometimes they have one that they suggest that you use over another. I know that I'm going to have the graphic card right here, and that's going to cover a whole lot, but I kind of like the heatsink side. So M.2, 210. So I just want to see, oftentimes what happens is one of the M.2s will make some of the SATAs stop working. That's really common. So let's look and see what it says. Okay, M.2, and this one's just showing, okay, well that was very generic. That's just showing removing this and then peeling it off and sticking to it, but that's not what I'm speaking of. So let's see. Dim installation, that is one thing that I do want to make sure. Might as well look that up now. And this is not the right chapter because this just shows putting it in the DIMM. I want to know what channels it goes into. So that must be in the first part. Okay, but at least this is a real motherboard manual. This just shows everything is. Yay. Okay, this recommended memory. Remember I talked about this. So this shows if I've got two, because remember, anything with DDR is going to run on channels. And they're color-coded, so that's normally helpful. But it still shows that it wants it in B2 and A2 if it's only 2 sticks. So that's interesting. A2 and B2 should be, and it's written right here, and it's got asterisks, so that's nice of them. So B1's the black, B2's the gray, A1 is the black, A2's the gray. So it wants the 2, if you only install 2, which we're going to do, 16 gigs, we're going to install into the 2 light gray. So that was good to see. And always check that. Sometimes it'll work if you don't put it in the right channels at first. Sometimes you'll get weird errors. So just follow the directions on that. Okay, I'm still looking for M.2, and I think you'll see what I mean once I find what I'm looking for. Front panel, serial, yay, yay, yay. USB. Okay. That's saying that that's the USB 3. That's fine. I know where that is. Okay, all your different ATX power adapters. Great. M.2. Here we go. So they are calling this first one M.2 1. So they're calling this one up here the first one. And they're calling the second one the second one. And I know you're like, well, it's first and second. I know, but numbers matter. So for generation 3, that's what we're on. The M.2 supports PCI 4.0 X4 mode and SATA for 2280. For Gen 2 and first generation, it supports PCI Express 3. Great. So the second one supports PCIe 4.0, that's the newest one, great, times 4. Okay, so good. So that means the same mode and SATA. Okay. So now that's really unusual, and that's why I wanted to look that up. Sometimes, if you use one or the other, a certain section of your SATA sockets will be disabled. Okay, but this one does not say that. So, and the fact that both of them are the same speed, I want to use this one because I like having the heatsink. I like that a lot. Okay, so let's see if we can open this guy up. Okay, and we'll open this side. Okay, and it looks like these and that you kind of have to just go. I was kind of unscrewing them and then I just went, okay, that's enough. This is nice, hard metal. That's really nice. And then it's got a peel back. So I'm going to literally peel this back and stick it on top of the M.2. Okay, and then it's got little numbers here. So what we've got, let me see if I can zoom in on these little numbers. Okay, so down here, this is where the M.2 goes. And I've got little numbers. And this one right here says 2280. Well, that's what I've got here is a 2280, okay? So what I first got to do is remember the little bag we saved from our motherboard. And this is where I see it all the time on like Newegg and other places where people go, it didn't, the M.2 drive I bought didn't include screws because your motherboard includes the screws. So I need one of those and one of these. So I'm going to go ahead and put the extra ones back. Okay. And let's put that over by there. So these are the 2 screws that I need. Okay. So one is the little stand, and then one is the actual screw that holds it down. Okay, I know this is a 2280 because that's the size, that's the length of it. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to very gently screw that into the little 2280 slot. Okay, so I put that in. And the reason I say gently is because you got to be careful with these. I've actually tightened a tad too hard and it literally popped right off. Like the actual where it's soldered onto the board. Okay, so be a little gentle. You just want it hand tight and you're good. Okay, so now let's back up. Let's open up our M.2, and this is what's really confusing about M.2, is M.2 is a form factor, okay? So I'm going to use this instead of a hard drive. This is literally replacing my hard drive or an SSD. This is my storage device. So M.2 refers to the form factor, but I think what's confusing consumers right now is you have two types of M.2. So you have, and this, by the way, is Western Digital Black. I used to always use Samsung stuff, but frankly, Black is an excellent level for Western Digital. It's one of their higher performance. It's 500 gigs. And this is an M.2, and what I'm looking for is its NVMe. Okay, so this actually utilizes the PCI Express lanes, which is crazy because what that means is this is fast. So I can have an M.2, they look identical, that's an M.2 SSD, which is great, goes just as fast as an SSD, which is great and fast, or I can have an M.2 NVMe, okay? And the M.2 NVMe, that is using PCI Express, and these are ridiculously fast. So I'm going to take it out like this, okay? And we'll put all the giant packaging away for the little tiny package. And in fact, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to actually put everything back in the box right now because, again, I'll sort some of this stuff later. But right now, I just want it out of the way. Okay, these are keyed. This is keyed. You can see the little hole. So I'm going to stick it in the top. Okay. And that is not correct. I should be able to put this in, and it would go all the way in. So let's try this again. Usually you do it a little bit out of 45. There we go. Now it's in. It's kind of awkward. These are a little bit different. So notice it's literally, see if it's flipped up. Okay? So this little thing, you know you did it right when you push it in, okay, at this 45, and it kind of sticks straight up like this. Not straight up, it's at a 45 degree. So then I push down, okay? So I know I've got it in all the way. So I push down, and I take this little tiny screw, and I push down, and I very gently, hand tight, barely, okay? Because again, you twist that too hard, it's going to twist the bottom piece too hard, and it's going to snap right off. So that is our hard drive. That is 500 gigs right there. And that is crazy fast. This is the fastest basically you can go right now. M.2 NVMe. And what I love about these is it's less cables. I don't need power. I don't need data. It gets the power from the motherboard. It gets the data directly to the motherboard. So that's it. Like this frees up cables. That's why sometimes if people don't need DVDs and CDs now, don't even do that. Less cables, the better. Okay, so now what I need to do is for this guy, I'm going to peel back this, okay? And this just will help transfer heat. So I'm going to put this guy down like this. Now, I'm going to get down because one thing that I don't like about this adhesive stuff is it's sticky. And I want to make sure that I'm on those holes, so I'm not pulling it up, pulling it back down. Okay, so let's tighten. Let's tighten. And I'm just going to, again, kind of weeble wobble. Nice. And I know I'm done because it just cinches down nicely. Okay. And that is my M.2 installation. And what I should find is that I have pretty good heat on this. And that fan will be coming through. The fan will be going over here, which I'm not super happy of. So there's an argument. Hey, maybe up here you have less heat, but up here you're closer to a heat sink. So all these things you have to kind of decide. There's not necessarily one absolute correct way, but there's a bunch of wrong ways. Okay, now we've got, it looks like, a couple different CPU powers. Now this is really interesting. So we've got our 8-pin and an additional 4. Now I think this is for our upper end CPUs. So I'm going to look up real quick and make sure. Usually it's always just the 8-pin, but I want to be for sure on this one. ATX 8-pin 115. So let's look and make sure that we don't need both. Okay, the connectors for ATX. And we're looking right here. So do not connect the 4-pin only. Yeah, you always want to make sure you do 8. Okay, so ensure to connect the 8-pin or both the 8-pin and 4-pin. For fully configured, we're going to... You want to use 2 more power. So basically it's saying we're not going to tell you. From my understanding, this is very, very new that you guys, that there's an 8 and a 4-pin for CPU. Some of the future ones might require both, but we're just going to use the 8-pin, okay? And that's normal for most CPUs. We're not going to plug anything into this 4-pin, but this is very interesting that they're already including this for kind of future CPUs, and that is a lot of juice. So I'm also going to find where here it says CPU fan, CPU OPT, CPU fan, CPU OPT. This has a little bit of a ridge, okay, and I don't know if we can see the ridge very well on this, but you can see kind of a ridge. This lets you know how to connect it, okay, because these have little ridges. So you just follow the ridge to the ridge, 4-pin to 4-pin. You can connect a 3-pin to a 4-pin, and if that comes up, which I'm sure it will, I will show you how. Okay, the only thing we have left is, well, graphics card, RAM, a whole bunch of power. But that's fine. We'll go ahead and install the RAM now. I always go back and forth. Frankly, you can install the RAM in the motherboard, or you can install the RAM on what's called an outside build. I'll go ahead and install the RAM now just because that board I'm a little bit concerned with. And what I mean by that, not the board, but the actual case and that bowing. So I don't want to put any more stress. So we're just going to open up this. This is our RAM. This is, for AMD, it's gotten better, but Ryzen, it used to be DDR4 is, DDR is DDR is DDR. So if it's DDR3, DDR2, they were compatible with all motherboards as long as the board was made for DDR3 or DDR2, okay, as long as it had the actual correct slots. Now, with Ryzen, when Ryzen came out, is very particular about RAM. So usually you want to look for something that was certified to work with it. It's gotten better, and I say with the 3000 series, I've had far less issues. But the first series, yeah, sometimes you bought RAM that didn't quite work. So this is 16 gigs, 2 8 gigs, 3200. You also have your CLE timings. That is important, okay? So you can see here that this is 16, 18, 18, 38. This is not the fastest RAM out there. Technically, the 3200 is your speed. So each stick does 1600, and then in one cycle, half a cycle, half a second, is one stick, 1600. The other half a second is 1600. So in 1 second, it does 3200, which is why if you ever buy DDR4 and it's 3200 and you only use one stick, you're only ever going to get 1600 speed. Okay, it's just how it works. But the CLE timing, that does affect speed. But honestly, I think when people start getting into that, that's your hardcore gamers and stuff, I think you're going to have more stability issues. G.SKILL to me has been very good. This is RGB. This will light up. I don't know. I used to be very opposed to RGB. Now, frankly, it's a little bling. It's okay. Only now this case has no windows, so you're never going to really know that it's lighting up. But from the back, you could see slight glow, whatever. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and turn this towards me. Okay, and now this, you might not always want to plug this in already, but it's not really much in the way. What I got to do is I already knew, I looked it up, it's the 2 gray. So I'm going to flip this guy back. Now, on some older boards, both sides flipped, okay? On this one, only one side does. So boom, that doesn't flip, that's fine. RAM is also very sensitive to static electricity. Before I go in, there's a notch here and there's a notch here. So I want to make sure that when I put this in, so that's wrong because the hole here and the hole there is not. So this is correct. So I'm going to slide this in one side and slide it in both. I'm going to put it down, okay? I want to make sure, because frankly, DDR4 I've had more issues with than any other DDRs. I want to make sure I'm inside the rail. Then I'm going to take my thumbs on both sides and straight down evenly, okay, on both sides. Now, if you heard that, that was pretty good. Ideally, we want to get one snap as much as possible. Both sides will snap. But I want to make sure that it's in all the way. But I don't want to go doot, doot. I don't want snap, snap, because then you can get it jammed up a little bit. Okay, is this right? No. Turn it. That's right. Now, some of you might be like, well, look, it's all lined up with G.SKILL and G.SKILL. Okay, just look. Always look. Don't trust manufacturers that they didn't mess something up. A printing error. So I'm going to line them up. Okay, there we go. They are both lined up. I'm first just lining it up, and DDR I can do that. So I'm just kind of looking, making sure everything's in right. Then both thumbs. That's it. Some motherboards are tighter than others, and what I mean by that is you got to put a little bit more pressure. And sometimes it's a little freaky because you go, okay, I think I'm going to break the board. Hopefully you don't. I mean, I'm not going to say you're not because you could, but hopefully you don't. You wouldn't break the board, but what you could do is literally if you bow it too much, some of your solder points and stuff will get messed up. So right now I'm just taking, remember I did that little same trick. I don't want to lose these screws and I don't want to lose these. This is one of those things I'm going to give to the client and it's probably going to sit there and never come out. But you never know. How about my client's a gamer and they, constantly upgrade? Or maybe later I ended up upgrading this for a client. Well, okay, that's cool. So if I upgrade for the client, then I'll have everything I need. So, but you don't throw this stuff out, okay? Okay, and put this guy on this, and now I'm set. So these two have this. Okay, now what I need to do is we're ready for the case, okay? But we've got a couple issues. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this anti-static bag. Let's kind of pick this up. I don't want any sort of accidents. I'm going to set this guy up over here, okay? Because I need to go get my case because we're ready to start putting this guy in. But I've got to do a couple things before. And then graphic card was still coming and DVD drive. But I've still got a little bit of time for that. Okay, one of the things that I'm a little bit curious about is really nice cases have a hole cut out. And I think this actually is going to work. Good for CORSAIR. Always check if you want to do good cable management, okay? There's a couple cables that we pulled out that we've got to do. And the one that I'm concerned with is my CPU, okay, that 8-pin. Because that's got to go in the top left corner of my motherboard. I don't want that strung across my entire motherboard. It's tacky and frankly can interfere with fans and everything else. I want to be able to run that from the back and pop it up in the corner. And it does look like this has a hole cut out. I have had other cases that do not have that hole cut out. And that becomes a little bit of a nightmare because then you put the whole motherboard in and then you're like, oh, I got to redo it. Okay, here's the other thing don't forget. You need to put in your rear I/O shield, okay? If you don't put this in, you're going to have the whole motherboard in, and then you're going to have like an open air to your computer. So these guys, they're all sorts of different. Sometimes they got little spiky things in the back. Sometimes they don't. Yeah, this one does. And most of your AMD does. I have mixed feelings about these. You need to make sure that these pieces don't get stuck inside. You can see how they kind of stick up. Make sure they don't get stuck in the port. I've worked on other people's computers and literally they're stuck in the port. So what I need to do is I need to figure out orientation, the writing, everything. This is pretty easy and I can look at the motherboard and make sure, but I've got my audio jacks. That'll be towards the bottom, USB towards the top, PS2 up here, perfect. So that's gonna go from the inside out. And what you do is you just press all the way along. So let's press, 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 press. And this metal is bowing. There we go. There we go. Again, this shouldn't be bad, but you got to use a little bit of force, okay? So I'm actually going to go in here. The problem is if you don't have this all the way pushed down and snapped into place, then it doesn't quite fit right. So, okay. I think that last snap did it. You could kind of hear it. Okay, I want this guy out of my way. So I'm going to kind of just tuck this up here. And frankly, if this gets in my way again, I'm going to tie it somewhere. Or I'm going to untie it and get it out of my way because I don't want to keep handling the motherboard over and over when I'm setting it in. The other thing I'm going to get ready for is screws. Now, according to the case, and according to my experience, these were the screws, and these normally are. But be suspicious. Don't always think that these, because I've had the odd case where this screw is not the correct one. So before I'm grabbing my motherboard, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of put one in and pull up and down, okay? If I pull up and down and there's any movement, it's the wrong screw. If I pull up and down, there's no movement, awesome. So how many we got here? We got 3, 6, 9. So I'm going to go ahead and take out 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And I'm going to put the rest away. It's a good idea, only take out the screws that you need and know how many screws you're putting in, especially for something like a motherboard, because what I want to do, I want to make sure that I know the number that's supposed to be in there, and I'm going to double check it to make sure that I have all the screws in. Okay, so here we go. Let's actually place the motherboard in. So I'm going to just touch on the sides again because I'm about to touch it. Let's reach over here. Now, how I'm going to do this is I'm going to kind of swoop in a little bit because I've got to get this part into those holes in that rear I/O shield I just put in. So, okay. Now, usually there's a center one of these. Yeah, okay, I think it's stuck. Now, and what I mean by that is usually this guy right here pops up a little bit so you know that it's in correctly. And this actually sat in fairly nicely. Now, I'm going to look back here. Be careful because this is not screwed in yet. And what I'm looking for is make sure none of those silly little things that stuck out is in any of my ports because sometimes I have to bend them. And it looks pretty decent. Okay. And that's, you know what? That's a little bit of a +1 for CORSAIR. As much as this case, I'm a little dubious of it. That worked pretty well. Okay, luckily this has a little bit of a magnet on it, but this is the part where sometimes you lose screws down in the abyss. So I'm going to go top left first. Okay. And then I'm going to go down here, and we're going to go bottom. Nice. And let's do the middle. And again, I'm not overly tightening, but I'm getting them going. I'm going all the way down with it just because I want to make sure that I've got good contact. So I just kind of did a middle one. And let's go over here. You don't have as much of a problem as this getting too cockeyed because they're laying on those grounds. And by the way, make sure that you don't have extra. Remember, I counted the standoffs, and there's 9, and there's 9 holes. Don't have extra standoffs kicking it out underneath, because if you do, it's touching the back of the board. It will short your board. And that is easy to do, especially if you're dealing with micro ATXs, okay, smaller motherboards. So just really be careful that you don't have extra standoffs, okay? Don't trust the manufacturer. A lot of people are like, oh, just throw it on in. No, look. Always look. Okay. And here we go. Okay, just about. And what I'll do is once I have all these in, I'm going to go back and count. Okay. Okay, so I've got one back here. Tight. 1, 2, 3 up on top. Okay. And then 1, 2, 3 here. Hand tight, don't over tighten, because one of the problems you can have is if you take this out and it's too tight, it'll start loosening that standoff behind it, and that becomes a nightmare. Okay, 1, 2, 3, boom. Okay, that's all nice and neat. So I've got a couple things left to do. We got to get our fans connected. We got to get all the power going to it. We got to get our DVD drive in. I think I'm going to wait and power and fans for a second. Oh, and we got to get a video card in. That's probably pretty important. Like I said, I've been very nervous about this DVD drive. You know what? I'm going to wait a second on that. Let's start getting some of the power. I'm going to wait on the video card right now because I want to be able to start powering and have it free. Once I put this video card in, it's kind of in my way. Okay, and if I need to run the power to the video card, that's fine. I'll do that towards the end. But let's start actually a little bit of cabling. So let's start with our motherboard cable, because that's a big guy. And actually, before I even do that, let's just look. Chassis fan right there. So on here, and the reason I'm stopping for a sec before I put this is because I just want to make sure that I'm not going to block. Right here it says fan 1. Fan 1. Okay? And the fan 1, let's see if I can zoom in on that. Fan 1. Okay, that means chassis fan 1. So this is a 4-pin. That's actually a good spot to put this fan in. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take off the twist tie. I don't want twist ties on the front. I don't want twist ties where there's metal and it could short circuit something. Okay. Okay. One thing you're going to notice is this is a 3-pin, but that's a 4-pin. No big deal. arrange it, this still has the little notch, okay? So since this has the notch, this also has a little notch. So just go notch to notch, and that'll tell you which pin is going to stay undone. So there we go. Notch to notch, okay? And there's one pin that's still exposed. That's the correct pin. What that fourth pin does is that actually allows the motherboard to control the speed. And if you're like, well, that means it can't control the speed. Well, yeah, these are cheaper fans, but it still does it a little bit by voltage. It's just kind of a cheap way of doing it. So I've got this guy now, and I want to keep this nice and neat, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and use my first zip tie, because again, I don't want to use any sort of metal up here in the front. So this already has kind of a natural bend. I'm just going to go with that same bend of the wires that was there before. And take my little zip tie. Make sure it's the right direction. Okay, and zip that up, okay? There we go. Now, once it's zipped up like this, one thing I do want to do is I don't want any of this extra stuff. So I'm going to take clippers, just kind of clean it up. And I might do another zip here and another zip here and make that look a little nicer, but frankly, it's pretty clean right now. So far, we've got one major wire and this wire, but it's all pretty clean. Okay, so next up, now I think we can string this across. We're still going to need one more fan header for this. So I'm going to kind of scout out. And again, I could easily just open up the motherboard. Okay, here's another fan header here. I think this one's going to work out well because I'll go from the back and then I'll go up to here. So I think that's going to be a really good one. Okay, so let's do the big power. Okay, so this is a split. I've got my 24 pin here and this is a split. This is common how this is split here on modular power supply. So this side goes in the power supply. This side's going to connect to my motherboard, okay? So let's turn it like this. And I see 24 pin ATX. Okay, and that says it right here. So again, this is kind of goofy, but I'm going to plug part of it into here and then take this other guy. It's a little awkward, but I plug that in to there. Okay, and that's how you know that that's where it goes. Okay, and you can barely probably see that, but I plugged one in here, one in here. Okay, and they kind of just snap in. That's the modular. Okay, there we go. That just snapped in. Okay, and Thermaltake, all of them, Sonic, they're all kind of doing that goofy one. So now I've got this big old piece, and this has got to go into all the way up here. So I'm just going to kind of route this now. Let's see. How does that look? That's not bad. So again, this has a clip right here, and there's a clip here. So basically, I just want to make sure the clip goes to the clip. So I'm going to kind of bend this a little bit, give a little bit of a flex, and boom, that's in. Okay, so we've got motherboard power in. Now we need to get our CPU power. That's that one that's got to go all the way to the back. So let's see how that's going to go. One side doesn't say anything. One side says CPU. The one that says CPU, that's what I'm going to take to the CPU. So let's look here again. And again, you're probably not going to be able to see this very well. Let's see if I can move this here at all. There's a spot right here on the modular that says CPU PCIe. And so that's going to be for your CPU or PCIe spot. So just for comfort's sake, we're going to take that right here. And this other one also has CPU PCIe, but this one's good enough, I hope, because now I got to take this and I got to try to stretch it all the way to the corner. Okay, and see, not bad. And then I'm kind of just leaving this on the back side. Okay, and when I show you the back side, I'll kind of show you how we clean it. But it's going to look very clean on the front, and that's what I care about. And I care about the front not just for aesthetics, but I also want the least amount of cable and resistance for airflow. Okay, so it's a combination of both. And don't worry, even though you're like, yeah, it's looking a little sloppy, it'll clean up nice. Okay, this CPU back here has a clip. So I'm going to go clip to clip. And okay, clipped. Nice. So we now have CPU power in. We now have motherboard power in. The only other power that we need is our CD drive and then probably our graphics card. So let's, and we still got to install the front panel headers. So we still have a couple things to do. But let's actually start looking at the back here. So I want to tighten this up a little bit. I'm not liking the way this is already looking, so this is getting a little bit sloppy. I've got our front panel headers. We're not using these yet. We will. So I'm just going to tuck the front panel headers kind of down and off to the side, okay? But I don't like this cable, and it's not bad. I just want to keep this kind of purposely out of the way. So I'm going to take a zip tie. I'm going to start just doing a little cable management right now. And there's no one way to do this. All I'm trying to do is basically keep things, because this is the back. We're never going to see the back, and the airflow doesn't really matter back here. So I'm just going to kind of keep these cables under control a little bit. And let's see if we can flip this down here a little bit. And at least that'll keep it a little bit out of the way. So I'm going to, for now, and on any sort of case that has, you know, a little bit of worth to it, what you're going to find is that you've got these little tie downs. And this is exactly what it's for, is for you to sit there and be able to tie it down, okay? Now, I'm kind of pinching the wires. That's not usually how I like it, but honestly, this flat design, it's usually round. So this flat design is actually a little bit in my way. I'm not used to the Thermaltake flat, because usually when it's round, you use these things, but when I'm zipping it up, it's kind of pinching it, but that's okay. Okay, also, I want to pull this back as much as possible, because this is my, my power 24 pin, and that one's kind of ugly. So I'm just going to give that a little bit of a push back so we don't see it that much. You're going to see it somewhat, okay? And people get really fancy and get specialized cables and stuff, but we just want to at least make sure that this isn't, you know, that it's as clean as possible, that when you open it, that you go, oh, this is nice. And manufacturers will trim these wires. We don't have that luxury. I mean, we could, but we're going to go ahead and not trim wires. And then, you know, have to redo it. But you'll find that even once it's done, it's going to look quite sharp by the end. I've got a little bit of extra wire here. We're going to leave this for now. This isn't horrible. A lot of times cases have a bottom shroud, so you wouldn't even see this extra. So we're going to see what it looks like by the time we're done. Okay, let's flip it over. And already, hopefully you're noticing, If we take this apart, even just bending that wire back, it's starting to look a little bit nicer, right? We're starting not to have too many cables. We've got a little bit bend here, but it's not excessive. It kind of keeps it out of the way. But I do want to go ahead and let's get this fan connected too. So I know I want to put this guy down on the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and go straight down here. Okay, and again, every case, the cable management's slightly different. So this particular guy, I'm just kind of playing with my different pockets. So I pushed it here a little bit. There we go. Okay, so I pushed it there. So what I did is I basically dropped this wire straight down here and need to come up here. So I'm going to go down here. And again, this isn't my fave case, but that's fine. This is a 3-hole. So I'm going to go, well, it's a 4-pin, 3. Boom. Okay, now this extra wire, yeah, don't like that. So let's go ahead and start tying this guy up too. And this is why they gave us lots of zips, so it's very nice. I'm going to go ahead, this is all power, so it doesn't really matter if power goes to power. Ideally, you don't want to tie power to data because you could get a little frequency interference, but power to power, it's usually fine. And I'm a little bit worried that this guy's thick. A little bit worried about this case closing, but we'll find out soon enough. If so, I might have to go back here and do a little bit more organization. That's fine. Twist ties are a dime a dozen, and sometimes you can redo stuff. Okay, so we're getting there. So we probably should go ahead and deal with the front panel headers because they are just in our way. So we need USB 3. That's what this guy is. I know it is because it's got this big, thick, kind of almost, I'm going to age myself, but a joystick, Atari 2600 joystick looking thing. And this is going to go right here. And again, my motherboard will tell me if I don't know. Okay, my motherboard manual. But for cable management, again, I want to pop this guy out because I don't want it stretching all the way across. So I'm going to raise it up a little bit and I'll pop it out this hole. Okay, so I popped it out this hole up here. I'm going to bend it. I'm going to word a warning. USB 3 I've had a ton of issues with. Once you put it in, try not to take it back out because this piece will rip off the board. It shouldn't, but I've had many boards that happen. So USB 3 is a little finicky. It's a great technology, but the actual front panel header can be a little bit tricky. Okay, and then we got HD audio. HD audio is almost always, all the way over here. Front panel audio, and this is my actual front panel connectors. These will go right here. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this down here. We're going to move this back here. And then I'm going to stretch this all the way to the end. So we'll get our front panel going right now. And then this on the front panel header, that's how I know that this is the audio connector. Let's see if I can zoom in on this. How I know this is the audio connector is because if you can see it, it's got one hole blanked out, okay? And that one hole blanked out, there's a pin missing right here. So you just go to missing pin to the blanked out hole, okay? And let me pull this back a little bit. Okay. And this is, I'm going to turn it to the side to do it just because sometimes it's easier. Always make sure that when you plug in one of these cables, okay, like I just did right here, that you actually hit the pins. And I know that might sound silly, but you'd be surprised. A lot of times people just cleanly miss the pins. And then they're like, my audio doesn't work. Yeah, because it's not plugged in. At least my headphone jack wouldn't work, right? Because that's your front panel audio. Okay, this is not actually a tie down. This is for SSDs, but we're going to go ahead and use this as a tie down. And again, this might seem a little chaotic, and some people will route this all a little bit more, but I'm not as concerned back here. I don't want it to be totally a rat's tail, but I'm just worried about pulling up tension and things like that to get that front clean, okay? So back here, even if it's a little bit messy, and that's a little bit messy, I care about up here. And if you think about it, I've added quite a few more cables, and it's still looking fairly clean. Okay, so we got to do front panels. That has to go here. That is one of my least favorite parts of a build, because there's little tiny writing down here, and these little tiny cables have to go right here. So what I actually do, and I highly suggest you do too, is use a motherboard manual. That's why we have it. So I'm going to find out, because this will have an exploded view of it. And I like that exploded view because that's much easier for me to work on. All you got to do is orientate yourself. I mean, technically, if you got, there we go. You got really good writing, but this is a little bit bigger. So it shows me as it goes across. It shows the blank ones. That's easy. Just match up your diagram. This is correct like this. So the power LED, okay, is going to go across, not up and down. It's going to go across. Okay, so I'm just going to keep this. I'm going to go like this. Little glasses. Sometimes it helps to have a little light in here. But I'm going to look, and actually, let me show you a couple interesting features. This is labeled plus and minus, okay? So let's zoom in on this. Okay, you can see here that this has PLED plus, PLED minus, okay? Well, what that is, you guys, is that is your, that's your power. Okay, that's a power LED. That's literally the lights. Let's get this thing to focus. That is literally the lights for the case, okay? But here I've got reset SW and power SW. Power switch, reset switch, okay? Now, the thing is when I look at these, there we go, this has a positive and negative. This doesn't. It's a trick, by the way. Normally, by the way, if it's multicolor, and then you see white, like say this is green and then white, green or yellow and white. If it's all got white, then that means that's your negative or your ground, okay? If it's black like this, because this is cleaner looking, and you're like, well, which one's gonna be ground? Because they'll call it ground, negative ground. Look on the back, and if you look back here, and hopefully I think this will show up, there's a little tiny arrow. Okay, there's a little arrow. Arrow is your positive. So the other side is your negative. These won't have it because these already have it. But positive is going to be the arrow. Your ground or negative will be the other side. Okay, so it's a little trick. But if you see, like, again, if they're multicolored, if these, you know, if this one's a green and white and this one's a yellow and white, white is your negative. That's an easy way to go to. Okay. So now I'm going to put in the front panel headers. And I'm actually going to route that through the back first, and then I'm going to pop it up right here. Again, this is not my favorite case, but it's okay. I've become very particular about cases. Power LED. Okay, so it says positive and then negative. Okay. Positive all the way in the top left. Negative right next to it. Sometimes you'll get what's called quick connectors, and those are pretty cool too. Okay, power switch, power button, and then ground is right next to it. So that's going to be, where's my arrow? My arrow is to the left, so I'm going to go to the left and there. And then my HDD LED, which this doesn't have, that's interesting. And then my reset switch. which of course is going to be right in the middle. Okay, so that's 2 over. Okay, so that's 2 over on the bottom. And of course, after I connect all these, you always test them. 2 over on the bottom. Okay. Okay, and that is the front panel. But the quick connectors are really cool. For a while they gave them, I'm not really sure, ASUS used to always do it, which meant like this little piece down here where I connected them, you first connect it to another piece and you just set it down, which is really nice. Okay, let's pull up some slack here because I don't like how those front panel header wires all over the place. And again, say we messed up on the front panel. No big deal. I'm going to clean it up now just because I don't want to have to worry about it later. And I'm going to assume I'm correct. And if I'm not, well, then I'm going to be cutting a couple zip cords back here. But if I am correct, then good. Okay, I want to keep as much of that cable out of the way. So I'm going to go to this one. And I'm kind of hurrying. I think I would take a little bit longer some of this cable management. Again, this is a new case. And you hear me complaining, but it's not the worst case I've worked with by far. I've worked with some cases that don't have this back area at all. And if you don't have this back area at all, that is an absolute nightmare. Because now you've got cables everywhere. You're trying to tie them to the sides. You're trying to do everything to not show off what's going on. Okay, we're getting very close now. So we still need to connect our DVD drive. And that's going to require power and SATA. And we need to put in our graphics card. And then we are done. Let's go ahead and do the DVD drive, just because I don't want to back myself in a corner with that graphics card where I can't get to it. So here is just a standard DVD RW, and we're going to see how this guy goes in. Usually they're toolless designs. This one's making me very nervous. See, the problem is right now, I'm going to have to put the front part on. I don't know how far back to put this, and that's an unusual circumstance. So I'm going to go ahead and let's put our front piece back on, line everything up. Okay, because this, I do know, should be flush. So when I put this in here, that's where it should go. Totally flush, just like that, okay? So let's see what happens here. And there is one screw. One. Okay. Again, that's very unusual. I don't like one screw holding the entire DVD drive. So I'm going to put this one screw in, and then we're just going to look around to make sure that I'm not seeing. Usually these are toolless designs, which means they kind of snap into place. Okay, I mean, that goes in. And to be fair, it's not moving, but it's usually at least 2 screws. Okay, I don't see anything there. I see one screw. Let's look on the back side just to make sure. It would really make me feel more comfortable if we could put one more in. Yeah. Okay. Yep, I can put one more in. I almost feel like this is, okay. Way down in here is another place to put a screw. That is very unusual because it's hard to get to. So, yeah. But I'm going to do it because I don't want just one screw in. Remember, your DVD drive spins around really quick. And what I don't want is a bunch of vibration causing it to go loose. So I got to push these wires back. I've got to go in through this hole. This is really goofy. And come on, don't strip it. Just get it to catch. Come on, catch. Okay, and what's happening right now is it's not wanting to totally go in beautifully. So I don't want to keep adding too much pressure because, again, I don't want to strip this. But this is a very... That one, sometimes what happens is you just might have one that's just a little stripped. These screws are cheap. So there's a point where, you know, only try so many times and then try another angle. So let's try this. Hey, we got contact. Okay, so it didn't like that screw. We now have one DVD drive in, very nicely clean, flush, all of that good stuff. So what we need to do now is we got to get data and power to it. We know we've got power. Data is going to be down here, so we've got SATA 3, 4, 5, 6, where's SATA 1? SATA 5, SATA 6, SATA 7, SATA 8, SATA 1, 2. So we're going to go over there. So I'm going to go ahead and take my SATA cables out. And they always give you two. So they give you one that kind of extends out and then one that has an L shape. I usually like these. The L shape for something like a DVD drive, but we're so compact here, it's going to hang down in the RAM, and I don't want that. So I'm going to go ahead and use the straight to straight. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, and of course I'm going to block myself, but that's fine. I'm going to go ahead, it's a SATA, so it's got an L, this is SATA data. So I'm going to connect this here, and then we're going to tuck this guy around the back. And let's see, I think I can do it right this way. Pull this through like this. Again, this is just to keep things clean. And SATA 1, I remember already, was this first one. So I'm going to wrap right around here. And let's see here. Okay. There we go. So I got a little SATA going on here. I just plugged it into that first SATA 1 spot. Ooh, I like that. So now I made a little curve on this. It's definitely in here. It's a little tight, so we're going to move it up to the... Because we only have one SATA, I'm not going to stick it on the bottom. I'm going to stick it on the top. And what I'm showing you is this one was on the bottom, but it was a little tight, so I'm going to move it to top. It's fine. That's SATA 2 in the 2 position. Ideally, you put your hard drive in the first, and then other stuff, or what boot order, you can always change it in BIOS, okay? It's not the end of the world. But it helps. I usually say put your CD drive first, then put your hard drive, but this is fine up here. It'll just be a boot order thing. Okay, so all I need is SATA power, and then we got a graphics card, and we are one complete system done. Let's see. We're going to find out pretty soon if this case closes. I'm a little concerned, but I think we'll be okay on the back. Let's flip that the right way and kind of just zip this guy up here. That'll just help a little bit. Okay. And we're looking good there, looking good. Let's plug in our SATA power to get that DVD drive a-spinning. We've got both fans connected now. CPU's already connected. Okay, and here we go. Here is some interesting end. SATA. So let's make sure that this SATA is long enough. I think we should be fine. Oh yeah, we're fine. So this is going to go all the way up to the top. And I got to plug this down here. So I see it says peripheral SATA. It's got a clip. Drop that back down here. Flip up. All the way to the top. And we're going to do a little peekaboo up on top. Excuse me. And I thought so. So the data, unfortunately, the data is up on top. So ideally, you should do the power first, because the power is going to be on the left side. So put the power in, and again, it's an L shape. It only goes one way. And then we'll put the data. Okay. Nice. So we've got that. Got a little extra right here. Let's tuck that towards the back. Again, not bad, not bad. So let's see if we can get a little bit of this. And again, this is just aesthetics. And I'm moving a little quick. This isn't great aesthetics, but this case doesn't even have windows. So frankly, this is aesthetics that no one's even ever going to see. But I don't care. I still want to know that if someone opens up a case and something that I built, that it's still clean. And I think that's important, you know, and it's going to have good airflow, and that I do care about because I don't want to see overheating issues in this. Okay, so again, it's a little bit of a hodgepodge, but hopefully you're seeing kind of an order. I'm just tying some stuff up, okay? Now, again, the way this is done, I'm a little bit concerned that we're going to have some issues on flattening down, but I think we're going to be okay. Tell you what I'm going to do. Just because I am a little concerned about this, we're going to go ahead and one, that was the screws. We're going to go ahead and see now if I can even close this thing. When you close a case, always lean it. Use gravity. Okay, this looks like it's going to work. Some of these dings I'm not very fond of, but now, one thing that's important is when I close up the case, I'm only going to close one side. Don't close both sides because you want to keep the one side open until you turn it on for the first time and make sure that everything works. Okay, and this should go in nicely. It's a thumb screw. There we go. Okay, so we got those sides on. And we'll wipe that off when we're done. I got a little bit of bend here, but that came with it. Notice nice and clean back here. And here, much better, right? I can see a little bit of this cable mess through that see-through. I don't like that. Part of that's the case. But it's otherwise pretty darn clean. And I'm going to have nice, clean airflow going through this. Okay, we are ready for a graphics card. And that is our last piece. So let's grab the graphics card. Okay. And we're going to open this guy up. And we've got a GeForce 1660. This is an ASUS, 6 gigs of memory, beautiful, nice card. This can do games. It's going to be a little bit more, if you're doing 1080p gaming and stuff, you're fine. But this is not a powerhouse gaming, but this person needs it for video editing. And for video editing, this has quite a few CUDA cores, and this is going to be quite nice. And they could do some gaming. You just might not be doing fill-in-the-blank, craziest graphic-intensive game right now at, definitely not 4K. But, 1080, it'll run it, but you might actually have to turn down the settings. You might not be able to do ultra insane settings. But this is a strong little card, especially for the price point. I really like the 1660s. Okay, so this guy here is my graphics card. It has, always remember, it's got a little rubber piece. But what I'm going to do first is I'm going to do a dry run as ours. Okay, so I'm going to kind of just see where this is going to set, because I've got to remove over here the two back pieces. I want to see where it's going to sit first before I remove, because sometimes these are nice and these are screws, but sometimes these are spot welded. And what that means is if it's spot welded and I remove them and I was wrong on which ones to remove, yeah, you got holes in your system. So I noticed it was the second one. Okay, so we just unscrew and pop out the little back plate. And I noticed it was the third one. And this is common on your, larger power supplies. And this one actually is not that beefy, but it still takes two. Okay. And now we're going to grab the graphics card. We're going to remove the rubber piece or plastic piece because that would be bad. And then I'm going to line it up here. I'm going to look straight down while I do it because I want to make sure that it's lined up properly. And sometimes there's a little bit of a trick because these have to go, the edges of the graphic card has to go to the side of the motherboard, kind of behind it. So make sure that you're there while you do that. And we'll stick a little bit here. This normally slides right in, so let's just make sure if anything's sticking funny, I don't want to press needlessly. There we go. Okay, so that just got a little bit stuck on the side of the motherboard. So that's in nicely. That sits right on top. And again, I'm not real happy with how this is designed, where I've got this fan for this chipset and I've got my motherboard kind of covering the fan. But notice my fan now. My fan's in a pretty good position, so it's going to pull air like this. This is going to blow air, and this is going to pull air, so I should have a pretty good setup for that. Now, those two screws I took out for the back, I'm going to put those back because I need those to hold the graphic card in place. So those go right back here. I obviously leave the back plates off because I've got a graphics card now. And here we go. Okay, so I put the two screws back in. Now the only thing I have left to do is get some power to this guy. So I'm going to undo this, and you'll see I've made a little bit of a mess around me, but it's all pretty organized somewhat. So you've got a 6 and an 8 on this, okay, for the PCI. This looks like this is an 8, so this will go together, okay, like this. And it's kind of got little clips. They're a little funny, but you'll see it when you kind of hold it. They want to go together, okay? And it's going to go just like this. In fact, we can just go ahead and, well, here's what I'm going to do. See how there's two? I'm actually going to take this one and fold it back and use the top one. Again, purely for aesthetics, okay? And there's a little clip on this guy, so I'm just going to go ahead and put this side in first, just because it's right here. And then for this bend, why I'm using that second one is because now I can take this and do a real simple, just kind of hold on it. I really don't, and this is always what's tough about graphics card, is it's hard to really put any of these cables as far as cable management. Sometimes you can go to the side, but honestly, we're just going to go ahead and pop this guy in right here where it says PCIe, and we're not going to even run this behind. And reason is because it's not going to look much better, okay, running this cable along behind here and popping it out. Well, okay, this doesn't have a shroud. So because of that, there's a point where I'm going to say, this is actually still pretty clean. And remember, it is for aesthetics, but it is also for airflow. And if we look at this design of how much I've still, kept those cables away from being cluttered, and the fact that this is not a windowed PC, so you're only going to see this when you look inside, this is still pretty darn clean, okay? So that is everything. At this point, this thing should fire up. We got SATA connected, SATA data to the DVD drive, SATA data. We got SATA power connected to it, so DVD drive is done. This, the CPU is mounted properly. We have the CPU fan connected, excellent. We've got the 8-pin connected for the CPU power from the power supply there. We've got this fan connected. The RGB is mounted correctly. We've got PCIe power going to the graphics card. It's mounted correctly. And we've got this also mounted correctly. We got the fan power going in down here. We've got USB 3 from the front going in. We've got our 24-pin motherboard power. We've got our front panels done, and we've got our front audio done. So at this point, the only thing we have to do is see if this thing works. It's going to work. We've got lights inside. Again, we don't have beeps. So we can see it kind of have red, white, green. And that should turn on. And the only other thing we want to make sure is feel our fan. We got fan moving here. This fan's moving. This fan's moving. I can kind of feel underneath here. We got the fans moving for the GPU. So we are all set.